I'm Andy, and today let's talk about hair. Today I want to talk about hair and how certain types of hair have been not only regulated, but discriminated against and used to oppress certain populations. Specifically, I want to break it down and we want to talk about race and hair, and then about gender expression and hair, and then getting into it, the Crown Act, and some current events happening. When we talk about hair, especially in American culture, we can't talk about it without mentioning African American hair and racialized hair for sure. Specifically, black hair has always been heavily regulated, dating back to the forced transportation of black people to the US as slaves, and how they were forced to abandon some of the traditions, some of the culture, and some of the practices ingrained in their hair. Hair in Africa, specifically Western Africa, often denoted status and identity, and was a way to represent to the world exactly who you are as a person. Within the US, after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, it marked limited progress based on what Black liberation groups wanted. And so it gave rise to Black power groups and Black liberation groups. And so in the 60s and the 70s, we see this total reclamation of Afrocentric hair instead of Eurocentric hair, where Black hair had been encouraged to be straightened with chemicals or bleached, things like that. Black hair has always been othered until it is appropriated by white culture, as we've seen with different celebrities, but often also different trends. And the fact of the matter is, people who are Black are still being discriminated against on the basis of their hair. And so taking those hairstyles that you do not have the tradition, you do not have the lineage, you do not have the culture, the understanding, is incredibly short-sighted and further marginalizes these groups. The US Army banned locks and braided styles, and so in 2014 they were called out by the Congressional Black Caucus, and the Black Caucus basically said, you are not giving consideration for the maintenance needed to take care of Black hair, and you are not giving your Black soldiers respect. And so it started bringing it back into the nationwide conversation. And it led to, in 2019, the Crown Act. The Crown Act was adopted in several states following its introduction in 2019, but it has only passed the United States House of Representatives. It has not passed the US Senate, even today, in 2024. This is important, as we will see it coming back to affect current events later on. Another thing that I want to talk about when we're talking about hair is gender expression. Hair is heavily regulated by dress codes in schools across the US. Hair is an expression of oneself, and when rigid expectations are applied to hair, adolescents feel as if they cannot be authentic versions of themselves, and this is problematic for communities of color, as I discussed, but it is also very problematic for queer communities and kids who are trying to explore their identity, whether that be their gender identity or their sexuality or anything like that. And so when the schools come in and they have rigid rules for boys' hair cannot be this longer than this, girls' hair cannot be shorter than this, it harms children feeling like they have a way to express themselves safely. And so they will find other ways to express themselves in ways that maybe aren't as safe. Personally, my husband went to Catholic school growing up, and he has always hated getting his hair cut, and he was forced to have a lot of haircuts while he was going to Catholic school. And so once he exited Catholic school, he now has longer hair than me, and doesn't really care what anyone has to say about it. I think it's gorgeous. I love it. My youngest sister is 10 years old, and she has a friend who is quitting cheerleading, which she's been in for a long time, because while she is a cheerleader at 10 years old, she is not allowed to cut her hair super short like she would like. So she made a choice that she is going to give up this entire sport, this entire extracurricular that she is doing, just so that she can have this expression of identity. I don't think she should have to make that choice. School is where adolescents spend most of their time. It's where kids spend most of their time. Dress codes are often, not always, but often, gendered or separated by a binary, an either or an or, and so we see this overregulation of certain bodies, and we see this prohibition of certain expressions, whether that be an expression of their racial identity or their gender identity. Today we can see this in the case of Daryl George. George was pulled from class in August of 2023 and told his hairstyle violated the dress code. This was in Mont Belvieu, Texas. The Crown Act was passed in Texas and became law, not just passed, it is officially law in Texas as of September 2023. The school claims that this is a length issue and not a style issue. So George has not been able to go back to class this entire time. He was sent to serve a suspension at an off-site facility and then in-school suspension, but he has been separated from his peers this entire time. Last week, on February 22nd, 2024, a Texas judge ruled that the school's dress code does not violate the state's Crown Act. And so he has still not returned to class, and they are working on an appeal, but we see that how even the existence of the Crown Act in these spaces is not preventing children and teenagers and adolescents being discriminated against based on how they want to express their identity. And that is a very complicated topic that I am only dipping my toe into, so I encourage you to go out and learn more and have a great semester. Thanks, everyone.